On today's show, the Cleveland Cavaliers look much more like the Cleveland Cavaliers again on Sunday as they beat the Milwaukee Bucks for their 14th straight win in dominant fashion. We'll talk about the statement this game makes, Max Strus's performance, and why I think that this is a pretty good indicator of what a postseason series between these two teams would look like. We'll do all that and so much more on today's edition of Locked On Cavs.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? My name is Danny Cunningham. You might know me from my time covering the Cleveland Cavaliers, places like my Substack, The Inside Shot, Cleveland Magazine, 98.3 The Fan, and a number of other stops along the way. I want to say thank you to you for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. You can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts. Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Drop us a 5-star rating. Leave us a nice review. Be a friend. Tell a friend about Locked On Cavs. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure a friend is subscribed as well. And if you're watching the show on YouTube, do me a favor. Hit that thumbs up button for me. Click subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content. Proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. The Cleveland Cavaliers beat the Milwaukee Bucks 112-100 on Sunday night in Milwaukee to extend their winning streak to 14 games. It is the second winning streak this season for the Cavs that has been at least 14. They have a chance on Tuesday to match their 15-game winning streak that they started the season with. But this was a game that I do think the Cavs made a bit of a statement because Milwaukee is a team that has been playing good basketball. And I know this was the second night of a back-to-back for them. They lost to Orlando the night before, but this isn't as if the Bucks sat anybody in this game. They played to win this game. I think Milwaukee wanted to build a little bit of confidence because the Cavs now have swept the Bucks. They won all 4 games between these two teams this year. And I think Milwaukee wanted to kind of prove to themselves a little bit, hey, if we see this team in the postseason, we could beat them. So I think this was a game they wanted. And obviously it didn't turn out that way. The Cavs, I thought for the most part, the first quarter, the thing I was most interested in seeing was what is the energy level like for the Cavs? Because if we are being honest with ourselves, the last 4 games, so Charlotte, Chicago, Miami, and Portland a week ago last Sunday, the Cavs didn't look great. They won games without playing their best basketball. I didn't think that the energy level in those games was necessarily where it needed to be. And I didn't think there was a reason to worry. And I do think that Sunday's game against Milwaukee kind of proved that right, because this was a game that was going to be, I think, a statement one way or the other. And clearly when you win a game by 12, when, you lead and just build that lead in the fourth quarter and put it out of reach to the point where the other team empties the bench with like 4 minutes left, that is something that I think sends a message itself. And I do think that the Bucks wanted to try and, as I said, prove to themselves they could beat the Cavs in the postseason. And I think the Cavs wanted to prove to them that, no, you can't. We are a much better team. We're a team that is on a much different level than the Bucks are capable of getting to this year. And I think that is something that the Cavs themselves, they said, hey, we want to prove this. So after the first quarter, and again, the energy was good early, which was the first thing that I was looking for. It wasn't great, but it was good enough. They looked, again, to me, like the Cavs. I thought the ball movement, particularly in the second quarter, and that's when the Cavs did start to build that lead. They started to go on the run during that quarter. And I don't think that the second quarter was quite a Cavalanche. They ended up winning that quarter 28-20. But I do think that it could have been much, much worse. Like the ball movement in the second quarter is what we are used to seeing at peak Cavs, right? Like when that ball is moving around, they are almost impossible to stop. And I actually thought, despite how well they played and how I think encouraged everybody should have been after the second quarter, it was hard for me to sit there and just be like, man, this is a 10-point game. The Cavs should be winning this game by like 25, because it felt like, and the Cavs in that quarter went 5 of 16 from 3 in the second quarter, but it didn't feel like any of those 16 threes. And of course, a team is never going to shoot 100% like that. But several of them were like, check the wind 3-pointers. And I just do think that there's no way for a lot of teams, when the Cavs have the ball movement going like they do, it's very, very difficult to defend. And I think that's one of the things that we really, really saw. And that stuck out to me because, okay, the Cavs are not playing great, but the energy level is where it needs to be. And then that typically leads to a good end result. And we saw the second half be better for the Cavs than the first half was. And I do think Milwaukee made this game a little bit closer in the final minutes with a couple of garbage time baskets, but the Cavs controlled this game throughout. And I think that's the message that they sent, is that, yeah, in any series between the Cavs and the Bucks, the Milwaukee Bucks are going to have the best player in Giannis Antetokounmpo. And he was, I thought, pretty good on Sunday night. He finished with 30 points, I believe it was. Like, he was solid, but they don't have the other guys that the Cavs have. Like, the Cavs, if you're drafting players in a series, you're drafting Giannis first, and then I think the next 3 picks are Cavs, because you're taking Evan Mobley, you're taking Donovan Mitchell, and you're taking Darius Garland, and then you're probably taking Damian Lillard. And Dame was fine. Like, he had 22 points in this one, but it just feels like Milwaukee does not have the perimeter defenders that they would need in a series against the Cavs, which is crazy to say. And I will talk about this coming up in a little bit. But in this game, I think the best thing about this game for the Cavs, if you're a Cavs fan, was Donovan Mitchell very good on Sunday night? I didn't think so. I mean, he was 4 of 15 from the field. He had 15 points, was 1 of 7 from 3. That's not the Donovan Mitchell that we are accustomed to seeing, and that is not the Donovan Mitchell I believe we'll see in the playoffs. He's got a much better playoff track record than a game like this. Darius Garland finished with 13 points. He was 1 of 8 from 3, 4 of 13 from the field. A lot of those were open looks. Like, those guys, objectively speaking, had pretty bad games by their standards, and the Cavs still controlled this one throughout. Like, if there was a message sent on Sunday, I think it's, we were not at our best. This is the Cavs speaking here. The Cavs were not at their best, right? They did not play anywhere near their potential in this game. They missed a ton of open threes. They did a great job generating those looks, but they missed a ton of those looks. I will say, I thought what they did defensively was really, really good. Like, yeah, Giannis and Dame combined to score 52 points, which was more than half of Milwaukee's points. Those guys are awesome players. But other than that, no one for Milwaukee had really a chance. Like, okay, Kevin Porter Jr. hit a mid-range jumper. Cool. Congratulations. Like, that is kind of the extent of just Milwaukee not having enough in other places. But this was kind of all about the other guys. And I think that's a great sign for the Cavs, because when they are rolling, you expect better performances from Darius Garland. You expect better performances from Donovan Mitchell. That will come. I'm not concerned about either of those guys. But for them to have bad nights and for the Cavs to still control a game against a team that will probably have home court, maybe not have home court, they could slip to 5 or 6, I do think. But a team that could potentially be a second round matchup, that to me sends a message. Because do I expect Milwaukee to look better in the postseason than they did on Sunday? Yeah, probably. Like, it's the second night of back-to-back for them. Giannis is still on a minutes restriction, even though he played over 30 last night. He played 33 on Sunday, so I don't think that was necessarily a big issue with this game. But the Bucks will be better. I think the Cavs, like, the Bucks played, I think, in this game closer to their ceiling than the Cavs did, and the Cavs still dominated. Like, it was not a close game. It was not a game that you ever felt like, even when Milwaukee went on a couple of their mini runs in the second half and they cut it to 4, like, it never felt like this was a game that was in danger for the Cavs. It always felt, because every time Milwaukee would cut it to 4, someone would hit a 3 for the Cavs, or it would be Sam Merrill or Dean Wade. Isaac Okoro hit one. That just kind of kept happening and happening. And despite the fact that, again, they shot 40% from 3, but it didn't feel like they shot the basketball all that well. I will be very curious when the numbers come out on Monday morning to go and look at how many of the 3-pointers they attempted. And I believe they attempted 47 threes. Yeah, they were 19 of 47. I'm very curious to see how many of the 47 threes that they took are deemed wide open by the NBA, because it felt like, I mean, several of those shots, there was just not a defender anywhere near them. And some of them went down, like the dagger 3-pointer that Dean Wade hit in the corner, wide open. Darius Garland, like, just missed a couple of shots that there was no one even close to him, that Darius Garland's going to make that shot more often than not. And I think that's just kind of speaks to what the ceiling of this Cavs team is. And I do think that Sunday night was a good reminder to Cavs fans, to the Cavs themselves, to all of America, because this was a nationally televised game. And most importantly, probably the Milwaukee Bucks, just how good they are, because this is a game that could be a preview of a second round postseason series. And after this game, it's really difficult for me to sit here and talk myself into the Cavs not winning that series. And I would obviously pick the Cavs to win the series, but it's hard for me to see the avenues where they don't. If both teams are healthy, like, yeah, Milwaukee has the best player in the series, but everything else points the Cavs' direction. Like, the Cavs have a matchup advantage just about everywhere else. And I think that's a really, really big thing. But I do think that if you want to look for the biggest positives from this game, it's the message the Cavs sent, right? It's putting Milwaukee kind of back in their place in the standings a little bit. The ball movement was, I don't think the ball movement has been this good probably since the Orlando game, maybe the Memphis game, but I thought the ball moved terrific on Sunday night. Like, that was the thing offensively that stood out to me the most, is that ball was just moving around. And when the Cavs get in that zone offensively, they're incredibly difficult to slow down. You see they win games even when their best players aren't playing well, because the energy that ball carries just matters a lot. And, I wanted to see the energy level because it had not been great lately. But you see, when I don't want to say the lights are their brightest, because that was not the case on Sunday. Like, yeah, it was a nationally televised game, but it's a game in Milwaukee against an above average team. But it was certainly a much stiffer challenge for the Cavs than any of the previous 4 games where I questioned the energy. They came out and they stepped up. Like, they got up for this game, if you will. And that's not something they had done previously. In the last 4 games, they hadn't necessarily got up for them. They saw a bit of a challenge on Sunday. They got up for it. What does that mean for Tuesday against Brooklyn? Are they going to look like the team that maybe didn't look great? I don't know. But I do think that this was a really good reminder of, even when the Cavs aren't clicking on all cylinders, because they were not on Sunday, they're still one of the best teams in basketball. And I think all of America should be coming away with that take after watching that game on Sunday night against the Bucks. I've talked about the fact that Darius, Garland, and Donovan Mitchell were not great in this game. The Cavs won this game because of the other guys. I want to talk about Max Strus, Sam Merrill, Dean Wade, and Isaac Okoro next, right here on Locked On Cavs. Today's show is brought to you by DoorDash. NBA fans, get ready, because they swoosh, you save. Thanks to Dash Pass, every time a player drops 50 or more points in a game, you score a huge deal the very next day. It's simple. When any player scores 50 or more in a game during the 2024-2025 NBA regular season, Dash Pass members are going to be rewarded. You get 50% off an order, up to $10 off the next day from noon until midnight. Maybe you wanted to stay up late watching somebody go off for 50 points. I don't know what your sleeping habits are, but maybe that's what you want to do. And that means you didn't have the opportunity to get your lunch together at work the next day. Well, lucky for you, what you can do is you can sign up, use Dash Pass, and then you can get 50% off, $10 off, up to $10 off, I should say, food from noon until midnight the very next day. So sign up for Dash Pass and be ready to save. When any player scores 50 or more in a game, Dash Pass members get 50% off an order the next day, up to $10 off. Just use promo code NBA50, that is NBA50, from noon to midnight after a 50-point game on eligible orders at participating merchants. Must have an active Dash Pass account. Terms apply. Visit DoorDash to learn more. Thank you again for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. Like I said earlier, you can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Drop us a 5-star rating. Leave us a nice review. Be a friend. Tell a friend about Locked On Cavs. Also, make sure you are signed up for the Locked On Cavs daily newsletter, your one stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. You can sign up for free now at lockedondaily.com. That is lockedondaily.com. I loved the game on Sunday that Max Strus had for the Cavs. He finished with 17 points, which was a team high, and sort of, I do think, speaks to just how much this was a team victory for the Cavs. Obviously Donovan didn't play well. Darius didn't play well. Evan was okay. I thought Jarrett was good, but he's never going to be, or I should say very rarely, going to be the guy that carries the team, like in terms of scoring. Like, there are just not going to be very many games that are, the Cavs won that game because Jarrett Allen had 35. And Max had 17, which was a high for the Cavs. He hit 5 threes. And like, when Max is doing that, obviously he's awesome, right? Like, there are very few times when he's hitting shots and he's not good. But for me, it was all of the little things that Max did too, because it wasn't just the fact that he hit 5 threes. Like, yeah, That's a big part of the game. And anytime Max Strus does that, you're going to be really happy with it. But Max also had 9 rebounds. And that is an area where I do think that the Cavs can really use the help. But Max not only led the team in points, he led the team in rebounds. He had, I thought, an awesome game. And it was on both ends of the floor. And there are some matchups, and, if the Cavs see the Celtics in the playoffs, we'll talk about that. There are some matchups where Max just might not be the right fit for the Cavs defensively because he's not a great on-ball defender, and the Bucks, or the Celtics, I should say, are going to seek that out. We saw that at the start of that game last Friday night. But I thought that he did all the little things on that end of the floor. The rebounding is a really big deal. It's getting his hand on loose basketballs. And that is one of the things, when the Cavs are at their peak, it's not just the offensive stuff. And you see these Cavaliers start because of defense. That's kind of the dirty little secrets of the Cavaliers. Everyone thinks, oh, they hit a ton of threes, or they're able to get out in transition and just blow teams away. Well, where does that start? It starts with the defensive end of the floor. And it starts with winning the battles for 50-50 balls. And that's one of the things that doesn't necessarily show up on the stat sheet. But that's one of the areas where I do think Max Strus comes through more often than not. Like, I don't know if I'm ready to say that he was the best player on the floor for the Cavs in this game. It was probably Evan Mobley, and Mobley's numbers weren't as great as Max's were. But I thought that the impact Mobley had defensively, like getting his hand on the basketball, fighting for rebounds, just like he did a lot of the little things too. And, he only scored 13 points. And I've talked a bunch about plus minus, particularly lately, just because of the whole starting lineup thing. And I do still think that we should see more minutes with DeAndre Hunter next to the core 4. This does not change that. But Max was a plus 17 in this game. And a lot of that didn't actually come alongside the starters. Like in the third quarter, the Cavs starting lineup didn't play great, at least not at the start. Kenny Atkinson had to call a timeout pretty early into that quarter. And in the first quarter, I thought the Cavs had good energy, but defensively, they weren't great. Like Milwaukee started off pretty well from the floor. So a lot of that came when he was with other lineups, which I think is something that is worth noting. But I thought Max's game was really, really good in 22 minutes. I thought he was awesome. I thought Sam Merrill had a really nice game tonight too on Sunday. He hit a few threes. I believe he finished the night with 3 3-pointers, and all of them, it felt like, came in really big spots, right? Like there was the one that he hit where Milwaukee cut the lead to 4, and Sam Merrill comes down and drills a 3. And there was one that he hit just before halftime, or at the end of the first quarter, just before the end of the first quarter. That was a great play. There was another one that Kenny Atkinson drew up out of a timeout. I believe this was one before halftime. Kind of drew up out of the timeout. And the Cavs started on defense, so we don't think about this as an ATO, but they get a stop, and then they run this the very next time down the play. So I'm going to consider it an ATO. But it was a perfectly drawn play. Like, it was awesome, and the Cavs executed it to perfection. And Sam he's going to hit open shots. Like, the guy he's been since the month of February started has been who the Cavs expect Sam Merrill to be. He's not had the best season, but he's been much, much better lately. And I do think that he's going to be somebody, if he's shooting the basketball like this, where he was 3 of 5 from 3 on Sunday. And is every game going to be 3 of 5? No. But if he's shooting the basketball like this, he's a good enough defender that I do think he's going to be on the floor in the postseason. Maybe he gets attacked against Boston, but you can't sit here and say, okay, whoever the Cavs are going to play in the first round, it's going to be the 8 seed. They're going to be below 500. They're not going to be very good. You can't tell me Sam Merrill can't stay on the floor in that series. In the second round, they're going to play Detroit, or they're going to play Indy, or they're going to play Milwaukee. You can't tell me Sam Merrill can't stay on the floor in that series. We can have that conversation about Boston. We can. But until the conference finals, Sam Merrill's going to be in the playoff rotation, and he's going to belong in it. Like, if he keeps shooting the basketball like this. I thought Dean Wade had a really, really good night for the Cavs. He finished with 9 points, made all 3 shots that he took. All 3 of them were threes, including the dagger. He was a plus 23 in 15 minutes, and it felt like it. Like, the bench bunch for the Cavs, and part of this is Milwaukee does not have nearly the depth the Cavs do, right? Like, coming off of Milwaukee's bench was Gary Trent Jr., who he's a good defender, but he was 1 of 9 shooting. AJ Green, who's a good shooter, but I don't know that he can stay on the floor in a postseason series against Cavs. Like, I just think he'd get played off. Jericho Sims, who another guy I'm not sure can stay on the floor, and Kevin Porter Jr., who was a minus 11 in 10 minutes. Like, their depth is not great. And the Cavs really took advantage of that because this was a statement win, not made by a player, but made by a team. And that's what the Cavs did. I thought Isaac Okoro was really, really good in this one. And I do think, too, that, we talk about the playoff rotation a little bit, and part of me thinks it's going to be Isaac or Sam. And I do think there's room for both in certain series. Milwaukee is a series where I think Isaac should get more minutes than Sam does, because I do think he does such a good job defending Damian Lillard. And I don't have the tracking numbers as of right now, but that's another thing that I'm going to be very interested to look up on Monday is what did Dame shoot when defended by Isaac Okoro? What has Dame shot this year? I believe he played in 3 of the 4 games. In the 3 games against the Cavs when Isaac Okoro defended him. I'm not sure Isaac played in all of them. But what do those numbers look like? Like, that is one of the things that I'm really interested in, because I do think just from the eye test, Isaac Okoro does a really, really good job in that matchup. So I thought overall the role players really stepped up in this game. And it's, again, a big statement for the Cavs that, okay, star players didn't play great. Milwaukee star players did. But the Cavs have so many pieces that are good. They just have so many good NBA players on this roster that if something else isn't working, something's going to work. And as long as the energy is there, which it was on Sunday night, they're going to find a way more often than not. And that's exactly what happened. So Donovan didn't play well. Darius didn't play well. I don't think that there's anything to worry about there, but I do want to talk about those two in specific and how this would potentially pertain to a postseason matchup against the Milwaukee Bucks. We'll do that next right here on Locked On Cavs. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. March Madness is here, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories and even who's cutting down the nets. Maybe you've got your eye on a few underdogs this year. This month is the perfect time of year for underdogs to maybe go on a little bit of a run, unlike the Milwaukee Bucks on Sunday night. Well, FanDuel makes it easy to pick them with spreads, totals, and game props. Love the props. Plus, with tournament games happening almost every day, like there's no shortage of basketball during March. There's always something exciting to bet on. Plus, the FanDuel app is simple to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. There's no waiting around. So what you have to do is go visit FanDuel.com and get in on the college hoops and NBA action all month long. Again, FanDuel.com, FanDuel.com, and $200 in bonus bets could be yours if your first $5 bet wins. Just got to pick one $5 winner for your first bet, and 200 bonus bets will be yours. Again, head to FanDuel.com to get in on the action today. That's FanDuel.com, FanDuel.com. Thank you again for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. You can find the show on YouTube. And if you're watching, do me a favor, hit that thumbs up button for me. Click subscribe, hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content. Giannis Antetokounmpo, Damian Lillard for Milwaukee, they finished with 52 combined points. Milwaukee scored 100. I don't think that is a recipe for the Bucks to be able to beat the Cavs 4 times in a postseason series. And will Milwaukee, as I said earlier in the show, will Milwaukee be a better team in the postseason than they are on the second night of a back-to-back in the month of March? Probably. Will the Cavs be better in the postseason? And this is, of course, both teams being healthy. Will the Cavs be better in the postseason than they were on this March 9th? Probably. I would like to think so. I don't think that this team has peaked quite yet. I struggle to see avenues where the Cavs would not win a series against Milwaukee. Milwaukee has the best player. Giannis is incredible. He is remarkable. But I think that the Bucks just have less guys that they can play in a series against the Cavs. And I don't think that Milwaukee has perimeter defenders. Like if I would have told you, if I would have done a surprise episode of Locked On Cavs Sunday morning, and you would have downloaded it wherever you get your podcast, you would have listened to it, and you would have given it a 5-star review on Apple, which you should do for this podcast. And I would have told you, hey, I obtained a crystal ball, and I know what happens tonight. I can't tell you who wins, who loses, but here's what I can tell you. Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland in Milwaukee are going to go 8 of 28 shooting, and combined, they're going to score 28 points. And also, Giannis and Dame are going to combine to shoot above 50% from the floor, and they are going to combine for 52 points. You probably would have said, oh man, what's the spread? Cavs are favored by 6. I'm going to take Milwaukee, right? Or 9, I guess it was at the start of the day. I'm going to take Milwaukee. The Bucks are going to end that winning streak. That's what you would have said. But that wasn't the case, because despite the fact that 2 of the 3 best players for the Cavs didn't have very good games, they still dominated, because that's what they're capable of. I do think that at times, I don't think it's getting bored with success. I think maybe it's losing sight of just how great this Cavs team actually is, like the level of greatness that they have achieved over and over and over again. It becomes a little bit, probably normal is the best way I can put it. Like, we just expect them to go out and be great every night. And it's like, they're not, like this past week where they were not great, objectively speaking. This last week, they were not great. They played, I think, their worst week of basketball, and they went 4-0. But we lose sight of it because we don't compare the Cavs to the rest of the NBA. We compare the Cavs to OKC, Boston, and where they sit historically. Like, that is who the Cavs are being compared to. They're not being compared to the Milwaukee Bucks. Like, if the Milwaukee Bucks had the week that the Cavs just had, if they would have gone 4-0, but underachieved in those 4 games, I bet the folks over at Locked On Bucks would be like, man, this is great. Like, the Bucks are on a 4-game winning streak. They're winning games, climbing up the standings. That's what matters. And instead, we're sitting here like, wow, what's wrong with the Cavs? They don't look normal. And they looked much closer to normal, but this team is able to dig deep over and over and over again. And they're able to win in so many different ways. Like, they won this game because I thought they were really good defensively. They won this game because the role players are really, really good for the Cavs, and they're able to hit shots. And they did it. I just kind of thought, you know what? That's like a B game for them, because they generated so many open threes and didn't convert at a rate that you would expect them to. It's like, wow, it felt a little as if they left some meat on the bone here. Like, this was a game that I think the Cavs very easily could have won by like 30, honestly. If their shots were falling, if they had a good shooting, maybe a little bit above their standard shooting night. And I know that they shoot 39% from 3 and they shot 40% in this game. So no one's going to look at it and say, yeah, they had an average night. No, they generated a ton of open looks and didn't shoot as well as they probably should have. Like, this was a game that if you play it over 5 times and just the same exact shots from both teams are taken, if you play this game over 5 times and both teams just get 5 chances at every shot they took, the Cavs won, I don't think, ever lose this game. And I think they win this game by 25 plus far more often than they win it by as many points as they won it by on Sunday at 12. Like, I think that this game was so much closer to being a Cavs blowout victory, like true blowout victory, like 25 to 30 points, than it was the Cavs losing. When Milwaukee cut it to 4, it was almost as, man, the Cavs are just missing open shots. Like, they were getting a ton of good looks. Milwaukee, I don't think, has the ability to defend them in the postseason. I think that this game, there will be games that are closer if these two teams see each other in the playoffs, because the Bucks have a great player in Giannis, and Dame is really good too. But I don't see how Milwaukee is going to be able to defend the Cavs. I don't. I do not see a blueprint for them defensively. Like, Giannis is really good again, but they don't have other defenders. They don't have anybody on the perimeter that I think can really give problems to Donovan Mitchell, to Darius Garland. Like, I thought that those two had a bad game on Sunday night because they had a bad game, not because of anything that Milwaukee did. And I think that's a great sign for the Cavs. I really do. So now the Cavs have won 14 straight games. Entering this season, the longest winning streak in franchise history for the Cavs was 13 games. So twice this year, the Cavs have beaten their all-time franchise record for winning streak 2 times. They have 2 instances of a winning streak longer than what the record was heading into this season. They obviously opened up the season on a 15-game winning streak, and now they're on a 14-game winning streak. They can push it to 15 on Tuesday. They also become the 9th team, I believe it is. I believe it's the 9th team. Let me double check here. No, they become the 8th team. 8th team all time to start a season 54-10 or better. So for 64 games, there have been 7 teams ever that started it 54-10 or better. Of the 7 that have done it before, 5 of them won the title that year. You've got the 1967 Philadelphia 76ers. They were probably Warriors at that time. The 72 Lakers, the 83 Sixers, the 96 Chicago Bulls. They went 72-10 and won the title. The 97 Chicago Bulls, they went 69-13 and won the title. So those 5 all did it. They all won the title. And then the 2 most recent that have done it, the 2015-16 San Antonio Spurs. They started 54-10. They lost in the second round of the Thunder. The 2015-16 Golden State Warriors. They won 73 games. They led the NBA Finals 3-1. And then everyone knows what happened there. So the 2 most recent examples did not win the title because the Cavs won the title. So historically speaking, either if a team starts 54-10, they either win the title or the Cavs win the title. Seems to me like if that happens this year, the Cavs are going to win the title, right? Like that's both options. Literally, historically, either the Cavs win the title or the team that does this wins the title. So the Cavs have really put themselves just in an incredible place in history. I also do believe, and obviously the season isn't over, like we need to see what the record is at the end of the season, but I do believe that Kenny Atkinson has and I saw this on ESPN's broadcast, I believe Kenny Atkinson has the highest winning percentage ever for a first-year head coach with a new franchise. Because he was tied at, I believe, 81.4% going into Sunday night, and obviously the Cavs won, so that went up. So just what is happening this year with the Cavs is absolutely remarkable. They are back in action on Tuesday night at home against the Brooklyn Nets. They will look to match their 15-game winning streak from earlier this season, tie a franchise record. That's a game they should win. So I will be back tomorrow, of course, talking about that. But first, I will be back a little bit later today. The Locked On Cavs whip around is back. We're talking Brooklyn Nets. We are talking Memphis Grizzlies, who the Cavs play on Friday. And then we are talking Orlando Magic to see if the Cavs can beat them by 40 again next Sunday in another nationally televised game. I don't know if the winning streak will still be going on there. But yeah, that the Cavs are in historic company. They made a pretty big statement on Sunday in Milwaukee. I really do think that if you're looking across the NBA, it's the Cavs, it's the Thunder, and it's the Celtics, and it's everybody else. Like, I don't think I would be stunned if the champion this year came outside of that group of 3 teams. And I think that Sunday night, if you didn't think that, you thought, oh, maybe, the Milwaukee Bucks can do this or this. I don't see it. And I don't think that you should either. But thank you for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. You can find the show anywhere you get your podcast, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Drop us a 5-star rating. Leave us a nice review. Be a friend. Tell a friend about Locked On Cavs. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure a friend is subscribed as well. And if you're watching on YouTube, do me a favor. Hit that thumbs up button for me. Click subscribe. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content. I'll be back later talking more Cavs basketball.